Julius Malema is blasting the national dialogue as expensive theatre while communities still queue for water and learn by candlelight. He says every rand for talk should fix pipes, add megawatts and make streets safer. Is the presidency funding optics or delivery? Before we dive in, hit subscribe to SA Unfiltered, turn on notifications, and drop your thoughts below. Your voice matters in this debate. Today we break down Julius Malema's attack on the national dialogue, the price tag that set social media alight, and the deeper question, is South Africa being sold theatre when it needs service delivery, jobs, and safety? Malema's argument is simple, sharp, and tuned to a country tired of broken promises. He says communities don't need a branded conversation with VIP passes, they need water in the taps, lights that stay on, clinics with medicine, police who arrive, and schools that actually teach. He frames the national dialogue as a glossy event culture that eats public money and produces communiques nobody reads. In his telling, the cost of this talking shop is an insult to township households budgeting every cent. The cost controversy has become the lightning rod. An early figure circulated widely and then was walked back, with the presidency insisting the final bill will be much lower and that partners will shoulder portions to keep spending tight. Malema's counterpunch is moral rather than technical. Even a reduced bill cannot be justified while sewage runs in streets, while case backlogs bury whistleblower files, while potholes swallow taxis, and while unemployment keeps families on the brink. In short, every rand spent on talking that fails to fix a pipe or add a megawatt looks like a luxury the country cannot afford. That framing resonates because South Africans have lived a decade of commissions, summits, and roadmaps that landed too softly. The Zondo years exposed rot, but prosecutions crawled. Energy plans launched, yet power cuts lingered. Municipal turnarounds arrived with signatures and selfies, then quietly expired. People are not allergic to consultation, they are allergic to the feeling that consultation is the deliverable. Malema taps that fatigue and channels it into a simple test. If the dialogue cannot survive contact with a spreadsheet and a deadline, it is not a solution, it is a selfie backdrop. Government's defense is that the dialogue is a democratic space to map priorities, rebuild trust, and secure buy-in across business, labor, civil society, and political parties. That matters in a coalition era. But the defense only convinces if the event is a means, not the goal. South Africans don't need another declaration, they need an implementation calendar with dates, budgets, responsible officials, and penalties for failure. They need to see water tankers replaced by repaired pipes, patrols in hot spots that actually reduce violent incidents and arrests that stick in court. Here is the uncomfortable middle ground that politicians avoid. Malema's critique is potent, but critique is not a plan. The presidency's convening power is useful, but convening is not delivery. The voters' task is to force both sides onto the only terrain that matters, execution. That means insisting on a public, trackable set of commitments that flow from the dialogue or from any alternative, the number of schools to be repaired by a certain date, the kilometers of water pipe to be replaced, the megawatts to be added, and the prosecutors to be hired. If the dialogue survives Malema's assault, it must change shape. Strip away the ceremony. Publish the line-by-line budget and cap non-essentials. Put community leaders from places like Kebera, Memlodi, and Thokoza at the head of panels, not at the back of the room. Stream every session and post attendance lists, minutes, and action trackers that work on a cheap smartphone. Replace generic resolutions with 3 deadlines per sector and monthly progress dashboards. Appoint a small war room that lives on a public dashboard in the presidency with weekly updates. If the dialogue collapses under public anger, the work still has to happen. The alternative is not more outrage, it is direct delivery. Pilot a municipal fixed team model that pairs engineers, forensic accountants, and clean procurement officers, then scale what works. Ring-fence grants for water and roads so they cannot be hijacked by salaries and parties. Fast-track energy projects that are shovel-ready and fix the maintenance contracts that keep breaking. Fund the NPA's investigating directorate properly and protect whistleblowers. Politically, Malema's move is classic EFF. It sees the moral high ground on behalf of people who feel ignored, force the ANC to defend a process that looks elite, and define the conversation in everyday terms: bread, fares, safety, dignity. The risk for the EFF is the same as for the ANC. If you speak for the poor, you inherit their expectations. Voters will soon ask the EFF for its own implementation calendar in the metros and provinces it influences. Sound bites win a week, service delivery wins elections. The electorate is more demanding now than at any point since 1994. They are comparing promises across parties and across time. They have learned the language of megawatts, debt to GDP, piping diameter, crime detection rates, and supply chain rules. That is healthy. It means any dialogue, whether convened by the presidency or by opposition-led coalitions, will be judged by four numbers: fewer days of blackouts, fewer liters of lost water, fewer violent crimes, and more people in jobs. Those numbers are immutable and resistant to spin. Energy is the best example of how to prove seriousness quickly. Publish a list of power stations and units coming back from maintenance, the expected megawatts, and the target date. Track breakdowns daily and publish penalties for contractors who miss. Add new capacity where permits are already approved, clear the grid connection queue, and secure diesel and parts so shortfalls aren't hidden behind excuses. No ribbon cuttings, just megawatts. The same logic applies to water: map the worst leaks, fund the replacement of mains, and meter and maintain. On policing and justice, the country needs a sprint and a marathon. The sprint is visible hotspot deployment and community policing that reduces violent incidents now. The marathon is training detectives, fixing case management, digitizing dockets, and stabilizing the forensic labs. Pair that with a corruption playbook that focuses on recoveries, not just headlines: seize assets, claw back funds, debar crooked suppliers, and publish every cent returned to the state. On jobs and investment, certainty beats slogans. Investors do not need flattery, they need predictable rules, faster permits and visas, working logistics, and municipalities that can keep water and waste under control. If the state wants factories and data centers to land, it must show that a project can go from application to groundbreaking in months, not years. The win is not a press conference, it is a payslip. So here's the challenge, sharpened by Malema's critique: cut the pageantry, cut the bloat, and ship the basics. Publish the costs. Publish the timelines. Hand the microphone to communities that have waited the longest. And in 90 days, report back with work done, not workshops held. If the national dialogue can do that, it earns its keep. If it cannot, it becomes another emblem of a state that talks at its citizens instead of serving them. Delivery over optics: leaders must meet deadlines.